Ever wonder why some people always seem to stay ahead? Why they don't just keep up? They lead, shape, and inspire. It's not talent, and it's not luck. It's daily habits, small, almost invisible, that build a strength you can't fake. This message isn't about slogans. It's about the mindset and moves that real leaders practice when no one's watching. How they think while others sleep. How they stay the course when others disappear. And why you can and must become one of them. Listen closely. If you're done watching others lead and ready to become the one who inspires them. Leadership doesn't begin with a title, it begins with a habit. Most people picture a leader as someone on stage, commanding a crowd. But real leadership, it starts in silence. It's built when no one's watching, in the simple, often invisible routines that most overlook. A true leader isn't a position. He's a system of decisions, built not on grand gestures, but on consistent choices. While the crowd waits for motivation, the leader moves, because he's trained himself to act without it. Leaders aren't born strong. They become strong through repetition. They plan while others guess. They study while others scroll. They reflect when others react. And with time, that difference becomes a chasm. You won't become a leader in a day, but start building the habits, and soon, you won't know how to live without leading. The first habit of a leader, he starts his day with intention, not distraction. While most people wake up and drown in notifications, the leader chooses clarity. He doesn't let the day decide for him. He decides for the day. He doesn't ask, "What do I have to do today?" He asks, "What matters most for the impact I'm here to make?" That one question reshapes everything. It might be a minute of silence, a line in a notebook, a moment of focus before the first move. But that ritual creates calm in the chaos, direction in the noise, power in the posture. The crowd stumbles into their day. The leader steps into it with purpose. That first decision each morning, it's not small. It's the first victory, and it sets the tone for everything that follows. The second habit of a leader, he acts while others are still waiting. Every day there's a moment when the world hesitates. Some are still doubting. Some are still planning. But the leader, he's already moving, because he's learned that momentum belongs to those who begin. He doesn't wait for the perfect time. He knows it never comes. He doesn't wait to feel ready. He knows readiness is a myth. But action, that reveals what hesitation never will. While the crowd delays, the leader steps in, even if it's messy, even if it's imperfect, because he understands the first move is the biggest edge. This isn't aggression, it's wisdom. He's willing to pay the price of experience, and that's why he grows faster, sees further, and leads deeper. He who moves, learns. He who waits, watches. The third habit of a leader, he doesn't confuse what's easy with what's essential. The average person picks the task that feels good. The leader, he picks the one that matters. Hard conversations, complex decisions, strategic thinking. These don't wait till the mood strikes. They lead the day, because he doesn't ask, "Do I feel like it?" He asks, "Will this move me forward?" He doesn't chase urgency. He builds foundation. And that's why he looks calmer, more focused, more effective. Not because life's easier, but because his priorities are sharper. The crowd avoids difficulty, but the leader knows growth lives in discomfort. So he builds the habit. What's hardest comes first. What's deepest gets his attention. He's not chasing ease. He's choosing depth. And that's why the world starts moving at his rhythm. A leader doesn't wait for things to be easy. He gets stronger where it's hard. The fourth habit of a leader, he protects his attention like gold. Today, your attention is your most valuable asset. Everyone wants it. Apps, ads, alerts. If you don't guard it, you lose control. But the leader, he knows the cost. So he says no, clearly, firmly, consistently. He doesn't start the day with a scroll. He doesn't jump at every ping. He doesn't give his time to every urgent demand. Instead, he builds an environment that protects his mind, sharpens his focus, and preserves his power. This habit lives in the details, in do not disturb mode, in screen-free hours, in the quiet discipline of focus, because every yes to the noise is a no to the mission. At day's end, they're drained, but not moved forward. The leader, he's calm, clear, and even if he doesn't finish everything, he finishes what matters, because he kept his focus. And with it, he kept his... The fifth habit of a leader, he reviews himself constantly. The most people cling to what's familiar. If something works, they repeat it. If it's routine, they don't question it. But a leader, he knows strength isn't found in staying still. It's found in regularly redefining who you are. Once a week, once a month. After every big move, the leader stops and asks, what am I doing on autopilot? What no longer serves me? Where have I slipped into old patterns? That discipline of constant self-review is what keeps him rising while others plateau. This isn't self-doubt, it's self-honesty. The leader isn't afraid to admit when something's outdated. He doesn't cling to what used to work. He upgrades himself like software, relentlessly, because yesterday's success guarantees nothing today. That's why he stays sharp, flexible, effective in a world that changes fast. He doesn't just act, he upgrades the quality of his actions again and again. That's not random, that's a habit, one that keeps him fresh, focused, and far ahead. Leaders don't chase balance, they create priority. Everyone's taught to balance it all, work and life, hustle and rest. But a true leader knows balance isn't the goal, it's the byproduct of clear focus. When everything's important, nothing is. So the leader doesn't juggle it all. He chooses one, the one that matters, and moves with it. He's not scattered, he's precise. The crowd wants a little of everything, a bit of results, a bit of rest, a bit of growth, and ends up with none of it in full. The leader, he goes deep, and depth creates impact, clarity, and visibility. It's a habit. Each day, define your core priority, and let everything else orbit around it, not the other way around. He's not a juggler, he's an architect, and he builds from the center, not from the edges. A leader doesn't fight discipline, he automates it. Most think discipline is a daily war, with laziness, with distraction, with delay. But the leader doesn't waste energy on that. He turns discipline into system. He doesn't need motivation each morning. He moves because he's built the structure. Same wake-up time, same rituals, a calendar that guides, checkpoints that ground him. Not because he's rigid, but because he doesn't want to keep making the same decisions over and over. That's freedom. Not doing what you feel like, but removing the need to decide when the path is already chosen. Discipline isn't punishment. It's the opposite of chaos. It's energy, gathered and directed. The crowd struggles daily because they have no system. They think it's about willpower, but it's not. It's about environment. The leader built his. There's a difference between wanting to be liked and building something that lasts. The first smooths things over. The second protects standards. The leader isn't rude, but he is clear. He'll say what's uncomfortable if it shields the mission. He doesn't hide behind what's easiest. He holds the line. He defends the value, even if others flinch. The crowd confuses softness with kindness, but softness with no boundary, that's not kindness, that's chaos. A leader is structured. He's respected, not because he's agreeable, but because his presence brings stability and high expectations. This is a habit, protecting what matters, even if it's unpopular, even if it makes waves, because he doesn't serve reactions, he serves a goal. Leaders don't explain their worth, they demonstrate it, daily. Insecurity begs for validation, it justifies, it pleads. But a leader, he spends zero energy on convincing. He doesn't say he's professional, he proves it with precision. He doesn't say he's dependable, he shows up, prepared, accountable. He doesn't say he's strong, he holds his direction when others fall apart. This isn't loud, it's consistent, and consistency builds reputation. That reputation speaks when he doesn't have to. The crowd looks for ways to get noticed. The leader lives in a way that the world can't ignore. It's not about charisma, it's about a habit of being present, precise, and principled. Every single day, you don't have to shout, you just have to show up. And if you do it right, they'll remember. Being ahead isn't luck, it's a habit. The habit of seeing further. A true leader sees just a little further, a little deeper, a little higher, not because of some magical instinct, but because he's trained himself to rise above the noise every single day. While others are lost in the weeds, he's watching for patterns. While they react, he steps back and asks, what does this really mean? That's why he sees the risk first, senses the shift first, prepares while others are still celebrating. The crowd lives inside events, a leader. He lives in the context. That one shift creates a different rhythm, better decisions, and a stronger foundation. Because he doesn't follow the moment, he follows his vision. His ability to see isn't just intelligence, it's energy. It comes from staying out of the shallow currents. And that's why a leader isn't just on time, he's ahead. He's trained his eye to see not just today, but tomorrow. A leader doesn't adapt to the environment, he shapes it. Most people adjust. They ask, what's trending? How can I make this palatable? But a leader, he doesn't play by someone else's script. He builds the field, then sets the rules. He chooses who he works with, defines the tone, the culture, the tempo, and over time his presence writes the playbook, not by force, but by unwavering standard. This isn't about domination, it's about responsibility. Because if you don't shape the space you move in, it'll shape you. And then little by little you start trading your values for comfort. The leader's habit isn't just doing the work, it's creating a space where his power can breathe. That sometimes makes him the outsider, but that's what preserves his core. Don't look for where you fit. Lead where your presence raises the bar. A leader doesn't run on motivation, he runs on mission. The crowd waits for mood, momentum, the right day. When they feel good, they move. When they don't, they disappear. But a leader doesn't check the weather. He doesn't follow emotion. He follows a compass, his mission. It doesn't have to be grand, but it must be clear. I'm here to build, to lead a mark. That thought, stronger than any feeling, keeps him steady. Mission isn't inspiration, it's direction. And then the pressure comes, the crisis hits, the energy dips. He doesn't fold. He might slow down, but he doesn't quit. Because he's not led by hype, he's led by purpose. And that daily return to mission, that's where his power comes from. A leader doesn't ask for trust, he earns it. Trust isn't given once and kept forever. It's not a trophy, it's a discipline. And the leader knows every day is another chance to prove he's worthy of being followed. He's sharp with details, keeps promises, shows up when others vanish, tells the truth, even when it stings. Those small habits build a presence you can believe in. The crowd talks a good game, but without repeatable action, their words fade. A leader, he talks less, but shows more, and that earns him trust even in silence. This isn't a gift, it's a decision, to become someone others can lean on, and that decision gives him space to influence, because only the trusted get to lead. He doesn't ask for it, he demonstrates, and that's why he receives it. Leadership isn't a title, it's a standard. Real leadership doesn't begin when someone calls you a leader. It begins the moment you decide, I'm done living by chance. I'm raising the bar, starting with myself. A leader isn't always the smartest, not always the most gifted, but always the one who sets the tone and holds the line, even when it's hard, even when it's unpopular, because he's not here for applause, he's here for impact. His standard doesn't shout at others, it starts with him, and people feel it, even if they never say it out loud. That's how influence begins. So if you're waiting for permission, stop. Start living as if you already are the leader you're meant to be. A leader's habits aren't always comfortable, but they always set you free. Some habits give you ease, others give you power, and a leader chooses the latter, because he understands true freedom isn't freedom from discipline, it's the freedom that comes from discipline. He gets up early, not to look good, but because silence gives him clarity. He says no, not to be harsh, but to protect his focus. He faces truth, even when it stings, because the cost of not facing it is always higher. These habits aren't flashy. They don't create instant pleasure. But over time, they give you what money can't, the deep sense that you're in charge, that you create, that you lead. The crowd chases comfort. The leader builds clarity, because only inside structure can real momentum begin. A habit isn't a cage, it's the chisel you use to shape your life. What you do every day, that's who you become. Character isn't a trait, it's a loop of daily actions. And that's why a leader doesn't leave his identity to mood. He builds it brick by brick, habit by habit. If you avoid the hard stuff, you're training yourself to run. If you wake without focus, you're rehearsing distraction. If you keep breaking your own word, you start losing your own respect. But the leader, he lives differently. He knows he's shaping himself every day and treats his habits like sacred ground. He doesn't wait for big leaps. He respects small repetitions, because those are what make you strong, present, grounded, not legends, but discipline. The crowd waits to feel inspired. A leader steps on the path, because even inaction is a habit, and every habit is either building you or breaking you. So he chooses, daily, to build himself in action, not just imagination. People don't trust volume, they trust pattern. In a world flooded with noise, promises, and half-starts, the leader stands out for one reason: he shows up again and again. He's not chasing big splashes. He's carving out a clear direction. People may not always agree with him, but they know he'll be there. He'll own it. He won't vanish. And that creates more influence than any speech ever could. The crowd wavers. One day they're all in, the next, gone. But the leader keeps proving himself through routine, through presence, through quiet commitment. You won't notice it on day one, but over time, this consistency becomes the bedrock of trust. In your work, in your relationships, in your team, you don't have to be the loudest, but you do have to be there. Leaders don't win with one big move. They win through a string of tiny habits others overlook. The early wake-up, the notes, the weekly check-in, the 5-minute prep before a call. That's the invisible edge everyone sees, but only after the win. The crowd shrugs. It doesn't matter. But those doesn't matters, they build your precision. That reply, that follow-up, that refined sentence. They don't just drive results, they craft reputation, and reputation builds power. The leader doesn't speak in grand gesture, he speaks in exact habits. That's how you build scale, not from luck, but from the accumulation of small advantages. One workout doesn't change you, but 100, you're unrecognizable. Same with leadership. Hold your discipline in the small, and the world will start taking you seriously. Your edge isn't in the loud, it's in the small things you never skip. Your level isn't your highest moment, it's your habit average. Most people measure themselves by their best day, the time everything worked, the moment they crushed it. But a leader knows, your true level isn't your peak, it's your pattern. That's not always easy to hear, but it's free, because if you hold a steady rhythm, even without fireworks, you'll outperform the 90%, still chasing mood swings. The leader doesn't build his life around "we'll see," he builds systems. So even when the day isn't perfect, he's still making progress. It's not that it's easy, it's that the structure holds when he doesn't have strength. And that's why he grows. That's what makes him different. Because while others wait for momentum, he builds it. While others celebrate a win, he's already building what's next. Your level isn't what you do when things are perfect. It's what you keep doing when they're not. A leader's true power lives in what he does when no one's watching. It's not the speech, not the applause, not the spotlight. It's the morning ritual no one claps for, the nightly reflection no one sees, the quiet no when saying yes would have been easier. While the crowd acts when it's visible, the leader acts when it's vital. His deepest strength is built in silence, because his drive isn't applause, it's alignment. He doesn't need an audience to show up. He shows up because it's his standard. That's the core of his habit, to be the same man alone as he is in public. And that's what gives his presence that unshakable force no one can explain but everyone feels. In a world chasing trends and reacting to headlines, a leader moves differently. He listens, he learns, but his decisions aren't pulled by noise, they're guided by clarity. His pace doesn't come from the outside. It's rooted in mission, structure, and inner logic. The crowd adjusts, the leader establishes. He's not trying to keep up. He's here to lead. And to lead, you must walk ahead, which means walking at your own speed. It won't always be comfortable, but it will always be effective. Because while others are still figuring out how to catch up, you've already moved forward. That's not participation. That's leadership in motion. Leading means stepping out before it's popular, before it's safe, before there's applause. It means acting on vision, not validation. While the crowd looks for reassurance, the leader looks for reason. He doesn't need permission to move. He moves because he sees what others don't yet. Solitude isn't a weakness. It's a signal that you're ahead. And if no one is there yet, that's because you were meant to go first. This isn't isolation. It's courage. The courage to act without a vote. The strength to choose momentum over consensus. Leadership isn't how many follow. It's how far you carry the mission, even if for a while it's just you. Leadership is a weight, but it's one you choose. Everyone wants the impact. Few want the burden, but a leader doesn't run from it. He picks it up, not because he has to, but because he's the kind of person who won't live small. It's not martyrdom. It's a choice. He knows if you want to change more, you have to carry more. And he accepts it, not with complaints, but with conviction. Even when he's tired, even when doubt creeps in, he stays standing, because he knows others are watching. The crowd chases ease. The leader chases purpose. He doesn't just want to survive. He wants to shape, and so he shoulders the weight daily, silently, without regret. A true leader doesn't create dependence. He sparks independence. He doesn't need to be the center of attention. He doesn't want followers stuck orbiting him. His mission is bigger, to ignite self-leadership in others. That's the highest form of impact. Not controlling people, but elevating them, helping them rise until they can move on their own. And in doing so, multiplying his influence. He doesn't hand out answers. He asks better questions. He doesn't micromanage. He builds trust. He doesn't tighten control, he expands minds. The crowd fears competition. The leader creates leader. That's why he's always ahead. Not because he hoards power, but because he gives it away. Real influence isn't independence. It's in the power you awaken in others.